So we're continuing with solving basic one-step equations today, and today we are transitioning from addition and subtraction to multiplication and division. But you see our ongoing theme remains the same. Isolate the variable. So I look here at example 1 that says 4x equals 24. Now we have already talked about how a number right next to a variable means multiplication. So that is just something now that you want to get in the habit of remembering. So 4 times x equals 24. That's what number 1 is talking about. So we know this is multiplication, but our goal remains the same of isolating the variable. And so I have 4x equals 24, and the job is to get x by itself. Now, how do I do that? I'm going to do that by doing the opposite math. You'll remember when it was a plus 8, we would subtract 8. Or when it was a minus 17, we would add 17. That idea remains the same with multiplication and division. I'm going to do the opposite operation. So since this is multiplication, 4x equals 24, I'm going to divide everything by 4. 4x divided by 4 is x. And then I'm going to take 24 and divide it by 4. 24 divided by 4 equals 6. So x equals 6. And sure enough, 4 times 6 equals 24. I go to number 2. We want to remember that sometimes they'll use a dot for multiplication. So we don't want to remember what that means. This means 3.4 times x. And the whole thing equals 23.8. Once again, it's going to be the same idea. I want to isolate the variable. So what I'm going to do over here in 3.4 times x, I'm going to divide everything by 3.4, which means I'm going to come over here and I'm going to divide 23.8 by 3.4. That may actually require a little scratch work, a little division of decimals, okay? We don't want to forget about that. So we're going to take, let me come up here, 3.4, and we're going to take that into 23.8. It's 23.8 divided by 3.4, which is what we're doing here. Want to remember our rules about dividing decimals. Going to move the decimal in the divisor all the way to the right. That's going to become 34. I'm going to move the decimal in the dividend, 23.8, the same number of places. Since I move this decimal one place, I'm going to take this decimal and move it one place. That's going to make it 238. So I'm going to think to myself, well, okay, 34 I think can round to 30. So I'm going to think, okay, I'm going to think about 3, and I'm going to think about 23. I'm going to think, how many times can 3 go into 23? Well, I know that 3 times 7 is 21, so that might work. 3 times 8 is 24. That's too big. So the first thing I'm going to try is 34 times 7. I want to see if that works. 7 times 4 is 28. I'm going to put the 2 down. 7 times 3 is 21, plus 2 is 23. Look at that, right the first time. So I find that it's 7. And sure enough, 34 times 7 is 238. Subtract that 0. I find that x equals 7. So that's multiplication. Division works the same way. Now, a lot of times, as we talked about, pretty much division is going to be shown as fractions. X divided by 17 equals 9. Now, once again, to isolate the variable, we have to do the opposite operation. This is a division problem, x divided by 17. So to isolate x, I'm going to multiply everything by 17. X over 17 multiplied by 17 gets x by itself. But then I've got to come over here and do 17 times 9, which isn't a very difficult multiplication problem to do. 9 times 7, I think, is 63. I'm going to put the 3 down and carry the 6. 9 times 1 is 9, plus 6 is 15. X equals 153. And sure enough, if you were to do 153 divided by 17, you would find that that would equal 9. Now, as you know, Mr. Swack wishes that They wouldn't do this, but they do it anyway. They use the division sign for division. I wish it would just be a fraction, but that's not what they're doing. X divided by 13 equals 2.6. Doesn't change what we do, though. Just because it looks different than number 3 does not change what we do. It's still just going to be multiply by 13. I'm going to do the opposite thing. So to get X by itself, it's just multiplying by 13. So then I come over here and I do 2.6 times 13. Remember, when you add and subtract decimals, the decimals have to be lined up, not when you multiply. When you multiply, you just have to remember in the end where to put the decimal. So I basically have 26 times 13 here. 3 times 6 is 18. I'm going to carry the 1. 3 times 2 is 6, plus the 1 is 7. I'm going to go ahead and put a 0 down so it all lines up with my 1. 1 times 6 is 6. 1 times 2 is 2. I'm going to go ahead and add those. 8 and 0 is 8. 7 plus 6, I think, is 13. Put the 3 down, carry the 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. I get 338. X equals 338. 338 divided by 13 equals 2.6. But some of you may have caught me. This is decimals. There's one digit that comes after the decimal in the problem. So one digit needs to come after the decimal in the answer, which means I need to put my decimal there, which means over here, X does not equal 338. It equals 33.8. So be very careful. Don't get them wrong because of where the decimal goes. Have a good time working with multiplication and division, and make sure to isolate the variable.